everybody. My name is Elena Kachan. I am with Ortho Carolina, the marketing manager, and I am here with a bunch of awesome ladies who are in sports marketing, and we wanted to come together to talk about what it's like to be in sports marketing. I know a lot of you out there have sports marketing aspirations and dreams, and we want to help you and guide you along your journey. So I'm going to go through and introduce our panelists. Thank you guys all for being here. Dawn, why don't we start with you?
Sounds good. Dawn Turner, Director of Brand and Consumer Marketing for Tepper Sports and Entertainment. And for those who aren't familiar with Tepper Sports and Entertainment, we're the parent company for the Carolina Panthers of the NFL, Charlotte Football Club of MLS, and Bank of America Stadium here in Charlotte. Within my scope of responsibilities, we handle all the brand and consumer marketing for all the different lines of business we have. Lots of great activities happening here as we continue to ends. It includes retail engagement as well as general fan engagement.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And all of you guys out there, obviously Panthers, they are huge. You probably know them. The goal of this too is to just kind of expose you guys to different opportunities, different careers that you might not think of when you think of sports. Obviously, they're a huge organization, so I'm excited to get into what actually you do. Megan, we'll hear from you if that's okay.
Sure, thanks. So Megan Hughes Allison, thanks for having me. Excited to be here with fabulous women who I've known for a long time in their careers. I'm with Genesco Sports Enterprises. We're a sports marketing consulting agency that handles corporate clients, investments, and activations in the sports space. So I specifically oversee a number of clients on their strategies and negotiations, and then activating their platforms against their partnerships in sports. So work closely with Dawn and the Tepper Sports Group and a number of other national properties for our clients. So happy to be here.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. And when you think of with sports, you don't think about agencies as much as you do the big brands. So I'm excited to hear your perspective on the behind the scenes and helping strategize. Brooke, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So I actually started my career at Novant Health and ran sports partnerships for them. So started on the brand side and then came over to the agency side. So now I'm the Vice President of Client Experiences for Bespoke Sports and Entertainment. We're a sports marketing agency based here in Charlotte, actually right down the street from Panther Stadium. So I waved it on as I drive by. And I run our hospitality and all things kind of VIP experiences. So COVID definitely took a hit to what I do, but we've been able to kind of pivot and do some things virtually and just kind of reimagine a lot of experiences. But in a normal post-COVID world, we kind of turn regular events into experiences and give people kind of that once in a lifetime experience and hope that they are grateful to our clients for, giving them that and want to do business with them.
That's awesome. I know a lot of people who want to work in sports love the idea of working in events. It's super fun, hustle and bustle, but a lot of us have probably had to pivot because of COVID. So I can't wait to get into that. Lillian, how about you?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Lillian Parker. I am also part of the Ortho Carolina team along with Elena, and I am a content marketing specialist. So a little distinct from some of you all who do work more in event-focused areas. I do a lot of writing, interviewing, and coordinating for content to be produced. So pretty much anytime you are following along with a team or a particular athlete or healthcare provider, athletic training provider, the content you see behind the scenes is produced by people like me. So I think we have a great mix of ladies on the panel to kind of speak to a lot of different areas that we touched that work together to deliver what people recognize as sports marketing.
Awesome. Yeah, and Lillian and I get a chance to work together day in and day out. It's really cool to kind of strategize with her and some of our partners on how we can combine the brand's objectives. And I know that kind of feels broad, but we're going to dive into that here in a sec. I'm going to kind of sprinkle some questions through, so feel free to add as you see fit if you have any additional comments. This is going to be an open conversation. But I'm going to start with Dawn, just because I am very curious to see what a director of brand and consumer marketing actually does. Can you dive in a little deeper and kind of break it down for those who may not know?
Sure. I would say first thing is every day is different. If I told you what I did from an hourly basis, Monday through Friday, it would be different every day. My husband would tell you I sit on Zoom calls all day and he wonders how I do it. And he's like, don't you get tired of that? And I said, well, actually, no, because every call that we have is different. So that's the funny part. We really honestly dig into as much integrated marketing as we can. From the brand portion of the organization, we're the ones that are really driving the conversations internally, getting all the departments to communicate together. So the Lillian's counterparts within TSE, we help them out as much as we can. We get them opening dialogue with not only the brand team, but the digital experience teams, all the way to the production teams. We have a lot of different marketing divisions, and what people would normally think of as traditional marketing divisions, and they don't all sit together. And so I think from our perspective on the integrated marketing side, we want to make sure that what you see on the outside from the consumer standpoint is as cohesive as possible, which means that it's the Panthers, it's Charlotte Football Club, it has the right tone of voice. There are a lot of really interesting things that, like, if people who are interested in brand, studying brand in particular, they can dig into the details and really start to break things down to the point where they can start to notice what those nuances are. Some people may not know the difference at all, period, and that's okay. But we want to make sure from a brand perspective that we're being as cohesive as possible across the board. And we also want to make sure we're engaging with people. We want to make sure that, they are finding ways to connect with our brand that are meaningful for them in their lives. We want to meet them where they are with our content and our messaging. And ways that we do that could be done through email, could be through live events, if we ever have the opportunity to get back to true live events. And then, of course, we do a lot of digital engagement planning. Obviously, with COVID this year, it caused a lot of pivots in a lot of ways for many companies, us included. It's like, how do we get back on the field? How do we bring our fans with us when they may or may not be able to be there? The draft was our big first event last year. How do we actually execute this in a meaningful way? When we normally would have a draft party, the NFL would have the inner circle, people traveling. And so we literally had to pivot within 4 weeks to figure out what is this? And so we created a show, and it was great. We had all kinds of guests on the show. It was a 5-hour show on draft night. Not only did some of our draft picks join, coaches joined, but we also had local celebrities like Steph Curry join, and making sure that we're providing dynamic reasons for people to tune in. Because if you've ever watched a draft, it can be kind of boring in between, especially if you're not a sports junkie. So how can we also branch out to reach the masses? So I think the short answer, Elena, is every day is different, but we always try to make things as meaningful as possible. But we do a lot of work behind the scenes that most people wouldn't realize, goes into what they see on the output.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it's great for us to chat and talk about what actually goes into marketing. I know people kind of see it from the outside and they're like, that looks so cool, I want to get involved. But, with conversations like these, we get to kind of peek behind the curtain with that. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts, and obviously there's a lot of partners. I know we work with you directly just on getting our name out there, and we utilize your distribution platforms for our messaging. And a lot of that is healthcare and healthy, active lifestyles. And how do we kind of come up with kind of a cohesive strategy and message that really fits with the both of our brands?
100%.
And speaking of strategy, I know, Megan, you work on the agency side, along with Brooke too. Could you guys speak to how you guys help brands strategize, how you guys help them execute some of these plans, and maybe speak a little to that?
Sure. So very similar to Dawn, I've been at Genesco for 15 years, and no 2 days are alike and no two brands are alike. So we spend a lot of time sitting down with the brand teams and all the critical stakeholders that are looking to invest in sports. So it might be the brand team, it might be the PR or the media team within the brand that is looking for an opportunity to amplify a platform in sports. So we help them, and strategy is kind of a buzzword, but it is helping them understand what properties, what teams, leagues, events they should align their brands with. And that's very, it's a very kind of intricate model that helps brands understand, like, who are the fans? Are these the fans that we're looking to speak to? What's the calendar and the season of this sport? Is it the right time for me to amplify my products through this sport? What's the reach of the audience of the sport? So there's a lot of things that go into helping a brand figure out, one, what partnership they should align with, and then how to negotiate the partnership. What are the right assets that we want? What are the terms that we want? How long do we want, a 1-year kind of test partnership, or is this a long-term play for our brands? What are the right media components that we want to amplify our messaging? So there's a lot that goes into negotiating and then working with the properties to get our clients the best deal, which is never easy. But you hone your negotiation skills over the years, and then it's the fun part. Once you've negotiated the deal and you end on the partnership, then you get to go activate it and you get to go have fun, like Brooke was saying, like on the ground, entertaining and bringing the platforms to life. So that's the behind the scenes that you ultimately see come to life on game day or on event day or draft day or Super Bowl. And I love it. It's fun. I love the strategy part.
There's a lot that goes into it. And Brooke, do you have anything to add to some of the clients that you work with and how you guys kind of fit in with their marketing initiatives?
Yeah, so knowing that we're speaking to high school students, right? There's a lot of different ways to get into sports, as it's been obvious with the different folks on this panel. I was previously on the brand side, and it's wonderful. But the thing that I love the most about the agency side is, I can have one phone call talking about a NASCAR event, then get off the phone and have another phone call that's talking about an NFL event. Then we're talking about the PGA Tour, and then I end my day with college football and college basketball. And similar to what the ladies have been saying, no phone calls are the same. But what I love is just the breadth and diversity of events that we get to do and get to plan and get to be a part of. And so the agency world is a tough world, but it is a fun world and a world that has a lot of variety. And Megan and the Genesco folks are lucky that they have clients that have been in sports for quite a while and are pretty educated on what they should be doing. Some of our clients, we get where it's, we've bought this and now try and tell us what to do with it. So in a perfect world, it's exactly what Megan aligned, where you strategize and you look at all of the audiences and you really kind of make them smart in their decision. But 90% of the time, the CEO really likes, football. And so we're going to go do a deal with the Panthers. And now you marketing people that are so smart, figure out how this works and how to make it actually successful. So I enjoy the challenges of that as well. And the fun part is we always figure it out.
Yeah, I was going to say it's never as easy as it seems, and a lot of, go figure it out. So I can totally relate to that. And speaking of just working with a lot of different people and trying to execute some of these plans, at Ortho Carolina, we work with a lot of different partners, like we mentioned, some agency partners, some brand partners, some distribution partners. Lillian can speak to that firsthand, but Lillian, you're kind of on the ground floor of creating content to distribute through partners. Can you talk to maybe a favorite partner project that you've worked on or had to create content for, and what that was like? And what is content? We can start there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think content is one of those buzzwords that every couple of years means something different. So at this point, I would say that's pretty much like when you're scouring the internet, when you're scrolling on Instagram, anything you see that comes from a brand is a piece of content, unless it's an ad, and nobody likes ads. So when I'm working on, producing a piece of content or collaborating with a partner on that, it is a lot of keeping top of mind what the strategy is and what our goals are, what a partner's goal is. And then really, like Megan said, it's the part where we get to go have fun. We've kind of already laid out the plan for what our goals are and what we're trying to achieve. And then in producing content, it's trying to anticipate what questions do people have? What do they want to see more of from us? So whether that's informational, entertaining, lifestyle tips, whatever that might be. I think one of my favorite content projects that I've worked on recently was with Around the Crown 10K as a local organization that puts on an annual 10K race. And in preparation for that event, which of course looked different this year, but we were producing some content together to kind of hype people up for, getting in shape for the run, how to cool down after a long form run. And as the orthopedic experts, we're the brand who has all of that knowledge. So we actually got to collaborate with them and produce a really cool, fun Instagram video that was built off of a pre-existing, long form blog that we'd already written. So it was really fun to be able to collaborate with a partner, utilize something that we'd already done and mold it in a new way that made it fresh and exciting and fun. And then actually get to go out and record and edit the video and watch those views roll in. So I really like what I do. I've also worked on the agency side of things. I've done a little bit of everything, which I feel like is like a rite of passage for people who get into marketing. But I think what's cool about marketing is whatever you enjoy doing the most, there is a role that leverages that. So I like to ideate, I like to write, and I like to talk to people. So, producing content is kind of the best of all those worlds mixed together.
I love that you said it's a rite of passage, because it totally is. I feel like you have to try a million things before you find your niche. And you obviously have a niche at Ortho Carolina. And I'm curious, Megan, now that you're at the agency that you're at, and you've been there for 15 years, did you have to go through any of that? Where did you start? What was your path to get here? How did you get on this side of the business?
Yeah, so I did not go to school for marketing. I actually went to school I really thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Like that was what I wanted to do. I went for biology. I did an internship with an orthopedic surgeon and passed out while I was in surgery with him as he did a total knee replacement. And he was the one that was like, this might not be the path for you. So here I am. But it's actually, I really enjoy the business of sports. I moved to Chicago out of college and had the opportunity to work with Chicago Bulls and expand my network of people that were in this industry. And that unlocked an opportunity for me to work with minor league basketball team. It was the rebirth of the old ABA. I don't know if you remember the red, white, and blue ball with Dr. J. So I got to work with this team. They moved me to Dallas to help start a new team in that league. And through, again, networking and really leveraging the contacts that I made along the way, I ended up meeting Genesco and having the opportunity to start a really awesome career with them. But I would say that, there's no traditional path to entering the sports marketing industry. A lot of people will come out or a lot of students will come and say, I really love sports. I really want to work in sports. Well, it's not really about the love of sports. It's the love of the business of sports. So, you can either go get your marketing degree, or like I did, go get a biology degree and and learn that medicine's not your thing. But ultimately it was networking, raising my hand for opportunities, looking for unique volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities, just to get my foot in the door, and not being afraid to ask for what you want. I was really fortunate in Dallas to have a really strong network of people, and that's where I first met Dawn. We don't like to talk about how long we've been in the industry, but we've known each other a really long time. But and we're still close, and that's what networking is. It's the most valuable resource you have in your career, is the people around you, the people that support you.
I will
say, I didn't know you were a biology major. I have to interject. I was a math major when I started college, and I quickly decided I need to do something in sports, and I became a certified athletic trainer in my undergrad. And then I decided I wanted to be on the business side. So I went to grad school for my master's in sport administration. And then, it took me many years to get on the marketing side. I started in PR, but it's that evolution, right? I forget who said it. It's like, oh, there's so much to go around and you can kind of dibble and dabble and find your way. And everything, I've had the fortunate ability that everything I've done has built on the prior experiences that I've achieved. And so it's led me to where I am. But yes, it's not a one, path opportunity.
And it's not linear.
Come and worked at Ortho Carolina.
I could have, you're right.
I
might be able to tape an ankle still. I need to test that out.
I know, what a tie-in. That's lovely. Honestly, I think it's really important to share how we each got to where we are. So Brooke, if you want to kind of chime in, I know you kind of took a path and I think it just speaks to the fact that it is not linear. I mean, every path is different. So maybe it can kind of help those who are searching to see what route they might want to take.
My bachelor's degree is in elementary education. My master's degree is in education administration. I was a kindergarten teacher for 5 years. I was a varsity high school basketball coach in Indiana, which is like being a football coach in Texas. Like it's a lot. And thought I was going to be a principal or a superintendent one day. And then I call it my quarter life crisis. I came to Charlotte for what was supposed to be a 2-week vacation, and 10 years later, I'm still on vacation. So I decided that I wanted to stay in Charlotte, got a job teaching in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is Race City, USA. It's where all the NASCAR drivers live. And so I taught all of their kids and got to know those parents really well. And several of them had foundations and different charity events and things, and really good at organizing. And I throw a heck of a party. And I had summers off. So I started volunteering and kind of helping them get their charities organized. And I think what Megan said about volunteering and internships is really important, because one, it helps you realize what you do and do not want to do. And the second thing is people are very willing to help. They're a lot more willing to help when you've helped them. And so I had put so many chips out there that then when it was the turn for me to cash those in, I already kind of had it invested, instead of coming to the well basically dry and asking people to invest in someone that they didn't know very well. So I kind of decided that I wanted to do something in sports. I really enjoyed working with the drivers and all of that. And there was a marketing job with Novant that came open, and I'd known some people within the system. And so when it came open, I applied. But I had an old mentor tell me that if all you did was, apply or put your online application, it's like you didn't even apply at all. And so I used LinkedIn, or what we would like to call professional stalking, to figure out who the hiring manager was. And I had so many different people reach out to him that by the time he interviewed me, he was like, "Can you please let people know we've talked? I need the emails to stop." Like, I get it. You know people. And I said, yeah, I kind of want this job. And so I got it. And, that was at the time when the Bobcats were transforming over to be the Hornets, and Presbyterian was transforming over to be Novant Health. And so in a very short time, I just got a ton of experience in basically all the things that go into a complete rebrand, both on the brand side and then on the team side. And that was so exciting. And I, at the time that I was still teaching, had met a gentleman who at the time ran a sports agency in Charlotte, and he did a networking breakfast. And so we would all come, one morning every month and just kind of stand up and, "Hi, my name is," and we all kind of got to know each other. And I obviously knew who he was. He was very influential, and lots of folks know who he is. And it was funny, one of these days I said to him, I said, "You know what, one of these days I'm going to work for you." Like, we just kind of hit it off really well. And so fast forward, 5 years later, I was at Novant enjoying life, and he called me and said, "Hey, let's go get a beer. I've got an idea for you." And, going to get a beer made the start of Bespoke, it didn't exist, and he kind of had the idea of what it was and what it was going to stand for. And I took a calculated risk, I guess, and became employee number one over there. And when I say we started, like, we didn't even have a trash can. They bought a copier, and then they're like, all right, let's see if it works. And I said, okay, great, where's the paper? And he's like, this thing doesn't come with paper? I'm like, no. So I've learned more about, business insurance and liability insurance and accounting and all of these things that I never thought that a kindergarten teacher from Indiana would ever get to know about. But when I speak to college kids a lot, I always tell them a piece of paper is important. But just because your piece of paper says sports or says marketing or says business or whatever, doesn't mean that gives you the automatic in, because you've got people like me that my piece of paper says education, that I was just going to work harder than anybody to get in. And I think Megan hit the nail on the head with networking. It's all about who you know, and being authentic and being real, and your reputation precedes you. And so just always being that person that helps everyone pays dividends in the end.
Yeah, that story is awesome. I think it always just goes back to, being yourself and being authentic. I'm glad you touched on that. And then just networking as much as possible. It sounds like really all of you guys have gotten a break of some sort from knowing someone or having the opportunity or taking a chance or knocking on doors. So that's super important, especially when you're young and in your career. So thanks for sharing that.
Also add to that though, Elena, you got to put in the work. It's one thing to network, but you got to put in the work. Like what I took from Brooke's story is she worked her tail off, volunteering, getting charities set up. And that is what stands out to people the most, more than anything else, is people willing to put in the time with a smile on their face. Because I'll be honest, in sports, it's not, all roses all the time. We put in long hours. We work hard. There's a lot happening. We have small staffs with a lot of different things we're trying to accomplish. And so we want to make sure that we're there because we love it. And you want people that are working alongside you, but love it as much as you do, and that still continue to have that smile on their face. So when it comes to the networking aspect, those are the best referrals.
So true. That's so important. Thanks for that ad. Lillian, I wanted to hear from you, and just in terms of how you got to where you are. And I think that would be helpful for everybody as well.
Yeah. I probably have the most linear academic experience. I majored in PR, and I stayed in PR the whole time that I was in college. I'll be frank, I think I was a little intimidated by the idea of changing my major partway through my college career, so I stuck with it. The first job that I had out of college, I worked as a part-time, do-it-all employee for a local parks and recreation department in Auburn, Alabama, where I went to school. So I earned 2 degrees and then spent 6 months planning bingo luncheons and the annual Easter egg hunt. And, I remember I loved that job, but I remember being like, is this what my life is going to be? What have I done? But lo and behold, that job actually led to, like we said, I don't want to say it's all about who you know, because, we all start from somewhere where we don't know anyone yet. But it was just sort of happenstance that while I was working in that role, my boss at the time had a friend who owned a marketing and PR agency, and she was looking to hire, and my temporary role was up. So I ended up spending 3.5 years working at that agency, which was a very, very small but mighty team. And that's actually where I gained pretty much all of my marketing experience, since my background was much more so in media and publicity, brand identity building. So I really got my hands dirty. What I learned in that role is the importance of saying yes. I think like everyone else has touched on, you really got to roll up your sleeves, do the work, be willing to volunteer and get involved, and just say yes. You'd be amazed at the people you'll meet, the skills you'll build, even just little anecdotes that can kind of build your portfolio. And that's kind of how I ended up in Charlotte, actually. I just wanted a change. I didn't know anyone in the city. I did not have any connections to lean on. And, I ended up working for a nonprofit up here in the arts. They took a chance on me and just said yes. And I took a chance on them and said, yeah, I'll pack up and move there. See you in 2 weeks. So that's how I got my start here. And through that role, I was fortunate enough that so much of the work I was doing was out in the community. We did a lot of events. We would go to city council meetings. I did canvassing to get people to vote to support the arts. I was out meeting people all the time. And that's actually how I ended up being fortunately connected to Ortho Carolina, that I was able to end up joining this awesome team. You meet somebody at the right time and you have a conversation and something clicks, and all of a sudden now you're meeting this person for coffee, and now you're in this room, and here you are. I am probably when I was younger was a little more introverted than I am now. And I remember that was a little scary moving into the marketing and PR space, because everyone tends to be so outgoing and friendly and sociable. And I was worried that sometimes keeping to myself would hinder me in a career. And I'm super glad to learn, over time, that I was wrong. I think you don't have to have a certain personality. You don't have to want to be an event planner. It's really if you like to know how things work, and you like to problem solve, and you like to be creative and collaborate with people, you can find, a path that suits you, where you can be authentic. I think that's, kind of the beauty of the field that we work in is there's room to be yourself.
Totally. I can attest to that. I, much like you all, did not start in marketing. I was a sports broadcasting major and thought I wanted to be the next Aaron Andrews, and was in radio and did a lot of sports that way. So I got my foot in the door, and then quickly realized, working every night and weekend wasn't for me on the production side. So I went to sales, didn't like sales, went to marketing, and now we're here. So it's just kind of funny where your path can take you. Clearly, not all of it is the same. So I'm so glad we shared that, because I think it also sheds some light on how different but same, all of our journeys are in a sense. And I hope that helps for people who are out there kind of finding out what path feels the best. And you don't have to know right off the bat. So that's one thing I'll add there. So I want to touch on, and I hate that I have to even do this, but I wanted to highlight an all women panel, just because I think that women are really rising in the ranks. We're really crushing it in this space. Obviously men are too, but I love seeing women become successful and network their way to the top. And my thought is, and I wanted to kind of hear from you all, and this is totally open. Obviously we had to overcome some challenges, but if you could kind of talk to your 17-year-old self when starting your profession and when trying to figure out which route you want to take, what would you tell yourself? Do you have any tidbits that people can kind of take away from this with your journey and how you got to where you are?
Girl, how long? I was going to say, how long do you have?
A good little takeaway would be nice.
So I came from a very small town. I graduated with 82 people. And the majority of my town, you either became a nurse, you became a teacher, or you became a stay-at-home mom. And you raised a farm full of kids, and that was what you did. And so it's funny that you said that you wanted to be a sports broadcaster. That's what I spent my freshman year of college. I went to Ball State, which is where David Letterman went to school. So I went to the David Letterman School of Communications and wanted to be the next Aaron Andrews. And at the time I was engaged, y'all don't judge me, I was engaged at 18 to a guy that it wasn't even that he was not supportive. He just kind of the same thing. He was like, oh, that's nights, that's weekends, that's moving all around the country. Like, where does the John Deere tractor and the white picket fence fit into that, and I was like, you know what, you're right. And so I played basketball, and when I couldn't play anymore, I'd started coaching in Indiana. In order to be a varsity coach, you have to be an educator. It's just kind of their way of weeding out and doing background checks and all that kind of thing. And so I said, oh, well, I really love coaching, and so I'll try this teaching thing. I came from a long line of educators, and so that's what I did. And so then when I went through what I call my quarter life crisis, I had a lot of people judging me. We had gotten married and subsequently gotten divorced. And so I was young and divorced, and, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so I feel like there's such a pressure on kids. It starts even when you're in like a sophomore in high school of, well, where do you want to go to school? And then the minute that that's decided, it's okay, well, what are you going to major in? And the minute that's decided, it's, well, what job do you want? Or, what internship do you want? And people just need to let people breathe for a second. And so I think if I had any advice for my 17-year-old self, one, don't be engaged. And two, just be okay with going to college, with an undecided major, or going for 2 years in a major and then switching your major, or graduating with something and getting into it and saying, this is not what I thought it was going to be. There's no law that says, if you graduate as an education major, you have to teach for the rest of your life. It's a great thing about being in America. And so, I guess just go in it with an open mind and just don't let the society pressure get to you, because it's your life and you're the only one that knows whether you're going to be happy living it.
You don't have to have everything figured out. Nice. Anybody want to add anything? I know it's kind of tough too, because like if you guys work with, I know just being in the sports world, we work with a lot of men, I think, just in sports in general, but the marketing side is leaning more female based, but anything you can kind of share in terms of insight on kind of finding your path.
Yeah, I would say, so two things. One is, to my 17-year-old self, I would say, and it's kind of along the lines of what Brooke was saying, like, I don't know everything. And I felt this pressure to know everything. Like, especially when I started in the sports industry, like it was okay to step back and ask questions and learn versus like feeling like I always had to prove myself. And so that's what I would tell the young Megan getting into the sports industry. Young Megan as a female, and as a minority female, like I worked on PepsiCo's business, and I ran Pepsi's motorsports for years. So here I am, a Black female, and I'm going into the motorsports space, and I'm sitting in a room full of men trying to negotiate or tell them what I want from an activation perspective or from an asset perspective. And it was really about confidence. Like I couldn't not go in the room and be confident, which means I had to know what I was talking about. So that younger self, make sure you're continuing to learn. So when you're sitting in the room and you have the audience, you're smart, you're educated, and you're confident to ask what you want. So I would say that I haven't had any moments of like feeling not accepted because I was a female, or not accepted because I was, a minority female in the space. But I have put self-pressure on myself to, you've got to represent, like you've got a lot of females in the industry and we're representing each other. And you're right, we are on the rise, and there's a lot of women in very powerful places in our industry. And I love it. And the good thing about it is that people reach down and lift us all up. So we got to represent. Be smart, ask questions, know your business, and be confident.
I love that. And I think finding a mentor too, I could add to that. I think just even all of us, I've never met any, I speak to Pink Mentor Network. I know that they're a local organization, but she always says, I've never met a woman I couldn't learn from. So always constantly being a sponge, asking questions and finding out different paths and how people got to where they are, and networking and all of that just kind of goes into lifting each other up. I think that's super important, and what's really helped me find the confidence and, feel empowered to go make those decisions. Cause I'm like, if you could do it, I could do it. So I echo that statement.
Yeah, I would love to piggyback on what Brooke and Megan have shared. And Brooke, like, kudos to you. Thank you for sharing so much of your personal story with us. I think, as you get a little older, you realize the sort of 1-2 punch of being true to yourself and being confident in that truth. And, I'm from Alabama. People don't always hear the accent, but, when I was younger, I would be very self-conscious of being treated as ignorant or sort of subjugated because I was a very young looking Southern woman. So, chatting on the phone or talking to a client who is a 50-something-year-old C-level man, I felt in that pressure to prove yourself over and over again. And then I think you reach a point where you gain this confidence of knowing, I know my area of expertise. I know what value I bring to the table. And being able to do that confidence of, like, I may not be the orthopedic surgeon in the room. I may not be the pro athlete, but I am the marketing expert. And I'm Southern and I'm cute and I'm here, and I'm here to talk to you. So I think to my 17-year-old self, I love the advice to, like, slow down, enjoy the ride, believe in yourself and know that you have every right to be confident, and just kind of own it, to not be so desperate for that approval and the praise, and just own where you are, because it's totally okay to be there.
Love that.
Agreed. You guys hit on everything I had thought of. So
yeah, I wish y'all had told me this.
But Lillian struck on something too. Like, it's like you look back now, like, with years of experience, and it's not just the advice you give yourself, but it's also like looking back at the experiences you had, and how you were treated in those experiences. So, like, working for, they're not all males, but I'll use the example, like certain male, whether it's presidents, CEOs, leaders. And then now that we rise through the ranks and we're in these similar positions, like, me personally, I want to make sure I stay relatable. I want to make sure, like, I have my own style, like, because I've learned along the way what works and what doesn't, what alienates people, what doesn't. And so I've been able to take that and kind of morph it into it works for me and is authentic to myself. And that has really helped. And of course you add, as you get older, you always get more confident, I feel. That's one thing my 17-year-old self could have used a lot more of, is confidence, and more mentorship. Those are my two big things. But as I look back and say, okay, well, now we're really lifting up the next generation. So the more we can give back on the areas where we had gaps is the areas of big focus. So it's the confidence building, the mentorship, the conversations like this, making sure we help others try to avoid any pitfalls we may have had, or think of things in a wider scope than maybe we had the opportunity to do, way back when Megan and I were working together. We won't talk about when that was.
I think what Dawn just said, it struck my heart, and I want to just kind of overemphasize it. When I first got into sports, I was too nice. I smiled too much. I hugged, heaven forbid. I was too blonde, all of the things. And people gave me the advice of, you have to get harder. You have to get more. I can't think of a word other than a cuss word. I don't want to cuss on this. So, but you have to get more B. It's just not in me. I trust me, it's in me, and it can come out, but I didn't want to live that day to day, because that's just not who I was. And so, I remember very distinctly, we were walking into a room and we were doing a pitch, and it was myself and the president of my company and the CEO of my company, both who are 50-something-year-old men. And we walked in, and I was plugging the computer in and getting ready for the presentation, of which I built the entire thing. I was running the presentation. I knew all of the things. They were just there really for looks. And a gentleman walked in and he said, "Oh, I'm so happy you're here. I was looking for someone. I would love a cup of coffee." And I just smiled and said, "No problem whatsoever. I'll go down and get you some. But just so you know, the meeting's going to start a little late because I'm running it. But let me go get you that coffee." And like smiled and went down and got us all coffee and came back. And he was so embarrassed when I got back. And I could have very easily, made him feel even more embarrassed. But it's just like, it happens. Don't worry about it. But now, let me tell you about how I do a lot more than make a really great cup of coffee. And we'd all just kind of laughed about it. And so I think as females, it's okay to smile. It's okay to be friendly. Sometimes it's taken out of context. And so you have to know that boundary. But you don't have to turn into this, hardcore ice queen in order to make it in this world. There are some nice ones still left.
I echo that, Brooke. I have the exact same. It's not a problem or an issue, but people tell me I'm too nice. And when I flagged it for myself as a potential issue, it was in how I was managing people below me. Like maybe too nice and letting them get away with something, or I'll just do it. I don't, I've noticed that was when my niceness might be affecting my ability to be a good manager. But I wasn't willing to give that up, actually talk to an executive coach about that. Like, I'm not going to be someone I'm not. I'm a super nice person. I just am. I agree with you. I have it in me if you cross me, but that's just how I do business. I mean, I've literally had people say, "Oh, I hate when Megan calls because she's so nice and she's going to ask me for something and I'm going to have to give it to her." Like, that's the best negotiation tactic ever, right? But I'm with you on that. I'm super nice, and I have to recognize when my niceness might not be beneficial to my team. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be my authentic self. And if you don't like it, then, it is what it is. It is what it is.
There's a reason
no
there's
nice
all
people.
kinds of people.
Yeah.
For every good cop, there's a bad cop. Elena and I play good cop, bad cop.
We do
Have that
sometimes.
good cop, bad cop within your organization when you go into meetings and negotiations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's a really good tactic to utilize. And it doesn't mean that anyone has to actually be mean. It just means that, sometimes you're not the one that has to say no.
Right. We got to come up with a better phrase.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Let's coin that.
Well, that's what we live on the agency side. Like we are the bad cop. So I'm like the nice bad cop, but we play the role so that the client can be all smiles and hugs, and we have to be the ones to have the tough conversations. But you can do that and smile.
That's so
I also
funny.
agree with you too, Brooke. My first big job, I would say, blonde female from Ohio, moving to Dallas, big city, big lights, working for, the good old boys club of Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to break through that ceiling. It's hard. And I think it still exists to some level even today, hopefully not as to the level it was at that time. But for me, the only way to do that, to break through that, was to actually leave the market. And that's just something I realized that I had to do, because they always saw me as the original, whatever age I was when I moved there, person. And I'm like, no, but I've actually grown a lot. And these are the new things I bring to the table. But sometimes, those impressions just stick with people. And so you have to really do a lot of introspection and make sure you understand where you can go to be that authentic self.
And a place that supports that authentic self. I think we learned from, our team at Ortho Carolina. They trust us to make those decisions. And our boss, Blair, which you guys might know, hires us and trusts us to do our job. So I remember distinctly one time I walked into a partnership meeting where we were getting pitched on a TV package or something. Like, they're like, "Hey, you want to pay us money so you can get on TV?" And I showed up with my manager, who was a woman. And it was, two women coming in, and Blair was not there. And she kind of looked around, and it was a woman. And she looked around and she's like, "Well, where's Blair?" Assuming that we couldn't make the decision. And we were kind of like, no, we're the ones who showed up to the meeting. We're the ones that can make the decisions. He sent us with full confidence that we could be able to handle, we would be able to handle this. meeting. So kind of just teaches you to take up space and kind of come into your own and build that confidence as you get into the industry. So I think all of your stories were so inspiring, and I think that we've all gone through our fair share of struggle and challenge to get to where we are. But I think with this series, we're really trying to just uplift the young students who are really trying to break into the industries. And we're going to do a couple more panels with broadcasting professionals and support professionals like in sales and business development and events and things like that. So more to come on that, but I was super excited to talk to you ladies and learn from you all about your experiences and how we can help the younger generation.